Hey there, this is Jonathan, and in the following set of tutorials we're going to take a look at using Photoshop CC 2014 for web design. Now we're going to be covering a lot of skills. Some of these skills are a little bit more advanced and I'm going to be going pretty quick. So if you're not too familiar with Photoshop, you may want to look into how to do some of these things beyond what I'm doing today, because I'm doing them pretty much focused on the workflow that I of course want to see my students use, but also workflows that I think that can benefit every designer. So in the first video, what we're going to take a look at is importing images, dealing with smart objects. This is like linked versus embedded placed objects as well, and also resolution and even dealing with vector graphics in Photoshop. So let's get started. What I came up with is an idea of doing some sort of Photoshop comp where I have a background, add a logo, and maybe some pictures of people drinking Coke, and a little bit of text. So it's like I'm doing my own little advertisement, and then I'll be able to play around with a couple different layouts of that as well, just for fun. Not really going to be stressing design too much, because it's not really what this is for. And then I decided that I'd find a vector logo for Coca-Cola, and I was able to find one that I could download. It's on a white square though, so I wanted to change that maybe. And then I thought it would be great to find an image that I could do a simple extract on to extract the background, and I wanted to show a particular skill here that I thought would be really interesting as well. And then I also wanted pictures of people drinking Coke. Now the problems with people drinking Coke is that every single image is a different size and a different shape, and I want them all to be the exact same when I actually use it on the website, or on the little comp that I'm doing. So that's going to bring us a challenge. There's also some color differences between them as well that I might want to try and even out. Like this one looks really kind of plain compared to one of the ones that I was just on. I can't even remember where I did it. This one, which has a little bit more golden hues to it. So just something to be aware of. So let's get started on the comp. Now the first thing that I want to take a look at is this image size. The image size right now is 15 inches by 9 inches at 72 dots per inch. Well, I really don't care that much about inches typically, or resolution when it comes to the web, because I really consider everything just based upon pixel dimensions. This particular screen I think is 1600 and something pixels by 1000 pixels or something like that. I don't really know exactly what it's set to. But usually that's what I would go by to be worried about. However, Photoshop makes us have to worry about it a little bit, and here's why. If I want to start bringing in my first graphic, I'm going to find a logo, and it's 72 dots per inch. And here's the two logos that I'm bringing in. The first one is at 10 inches by 3 inches at 72 dots per inch. The next one is 2.4 inches by 0.7 inches at 300 dots per inch. But they're both the exact same screen size or dimensions. Does that matter in Photoshop? We'll find out. Here's the 72 dots per inch one. I drag it in and just create just a simple embedded placed object. No problem. I go to the next one and bring it in, and notice the change. It actually comes in at a smaller size. So somehow that resolution is coming into play and actually making it smaller instead of scaling it up to fit the dimensions, the pixel dimensions of this particular document. So you want to be aware of that, because you want to make sure that all the graphics that you import into a comp like this are at the exact same DPI. It's going to really matter. So I'm going to go ahead and close that one so I don't need it. But let's see, here's another one which is a red. It's got a little bit of red going on there. It's not, too good. But, I forgot. I actually wanted to place this a different way. You'll notice if I look at the icons, if I just drag it in, it always does what's called a embedded placed. So that's placed embedded. That's what that looks like. Now if I do File, Place, Linked, then what happens is it actually comes in as a linked file instead. So notice the change of the icon that's there. Now what matters here is if I decided to change the original. So I'm going to come into the original here, and I'm going to just change it a little bit Oops. I'm gonna make that a little bit less in here, a little bit less in there. So that's just a little strip of red. I'm going to go ahead and close that. So I'm now changing the original. Notice what happened. The lower one, which was linked to the original document, it updated, but the other one above it did not. Let's try that again by actually making it fully white, and then I think it'll be a little bit more apparent, obviously. So there we go. I'm going to change that, and now you'll see that the one that was linked automatically changed, whereas the one that was embedded did not. So that's what you want to know about linked objects versus embedded. Now, if we ever did want to maybe link this back to the original, it wouldn't be impossible to do. In fact, one of the things I love about this is that you can right-click on a smart object and you can replace the contents with a different file. So that's really nice. If they're about the equal size, then you shouldn't have any problems at all. So if you do change the original file, you can then go ahead and link to it. Now, I'm going to go ahead and take that off, and actually, I want those two off. So I just have one Coca-Cola logo. And one of the things that, of course, is great about having this be a smart object is that you can then scale it if you want to, and that's with Control-T. I can scale it down, and then it won't lose any quality if I scale it back up. Now, I've got a simple logo that I'm going to be using, but in the next one, I actually have some other graphics that I might be bringing in. For example, I've got these pictures of people that I'm going to bring in, and I want you to notice that they're all different sizes. Well, that's going to be a real challenge. Oops, somehow I deleted that. I really didn't mean to. But the reason it's going to be a challenge is because they are all different sizes. So I'm going to do that in the next comp. So what I'm going to do right now is actually bring in some other elements. So here's an EPS. And the nice thing about an EPS like this one is that it can be scaled to whatever size that you want because it's vector. So I can get really large with it and it will always re-rasterize. I'm going to undo that. And of course, if I didn't want to link to that EPS, I could link to a different EPS, which is really kind of nice. And I can also link to, let me replace that, to an Illustrator file. Now when you do that, it will come up with this bounding box type of thing that will crop to it. It will come in just fine, but I typically like the EPS because it doesn't come up with that bounding box error. So just something to note. Now, the reason that I wanted to go over this next one is here. Bringing in these. This is also set to 300 dots per inch, but these are really large files. So there's once again why I might want to do that. I want to go ahead and maybe do a little bit of trimming before I start importing this and then changing it to image size. Let me change that to 72. Beautiful. And I'm going to save that file before I bring it in. That way, it's just a little bit of editing goes a long way to make sure that it comes in at the proper size. Now, the next thing is, if I wanted to go ahead and extract this, if I just go ahead and go inside here, and I want to maybe make this a little different and add some layers and do that, as soon as I do that and I try and save this, it's going to say you can't save over the Photoshop document or the JPEG document. So here's one of the tricks that I want you to be aware of, and that is one of the really effective ways of using smart objects is, while you might have created a smart object initially, right-click and convert this to a new smart object. Then when you go inside of here, you can add as many layers that you want, and this is a PSB that basically lives in this original Photoshop document, and there's no file that exists for it on the computer. If you ever wanted to create one, you could certainly export it, but it actually gives you a lot of freedom, like the ability to do masking or something very quickly. So if I wanted to do a quick mask on this thing, it'd be no problem. I'm just going to very quickly do that and go ahead. Oh, let me invert that mask real quick. So I've got that. If I close, it will go back into the document